All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back right here at the Future Food Summit 2021. Once again, my name is Colin, your virtual host. And those of you just joined us here, we are going to have the next topic, and it's going to be urban farming. This is going to be very interesting. Challenges and opportunities of Indo-vertical farming. Vertical farming. And before I introduce the speaker, let me talk about um, his background a bit. He started his business, Urban Greens, in 2016 with a vision to bring hydroponic technology to urban centers, remote sites, and islands around the world. He is since then a member of the AVF and their representative for Southeast Asia. He's the CEO and founder of Urban Greens. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to pass this time to Mr. Ralph Becker. Mr. Ralph Becker, time is yours. We're going to have a virtual tour, by the way. So stick around, Mr. Ralph Becker. Thank you so much. Here we go, Mr. Ralph Becker.
Hey, thank you very much. Hi, everyone. My name is Ralph, and I'm the CEO and founder of Urban Greens. Thanks, Colin, for the introduction. So I've been, as Colin said, I was a corporate tech guy for about 10 years, working in a consumer electronics company. And I decided after 10 years to come to the Philippines, back to the roots. I'm half Filipino. And I set up shop here in the Philippines, and I created this urban farming company in 2017. And I'm going to take you to a tour. This is not a virtual background, by the way. I'll be taking you through a tour through my indoor urban farm here in a bit. So I'm going to share my screen with you because I have a bit of a presentation for you to see. And I'll be talking about the challenges and opportunities of indoor vertical farming, all right? So the company mission that we have at Urban Greens is to ensure consistent supply of highest quality food through innovative vertical farming. And why is that? I moved here to the Philippines about 5 years ago or 6 years ago now. And one of the first things I noticed is that the Philippines, such as probably Malaysia or Singapore, all of the countries in the region, they're very lush and green countries. We have a lot of rainforests here. But then at the same time, I noticed that fresh vegetables and greens were very expensive compared to our neighboring countries, and particularly where I grew up, and I used to live in Japan. I used to live in the US. So kale, spinach, and tomatoes, my favorite, they were so much more expensive here than in the other countries where I used to live. Notably, even in Japan. Japan is so expensive normally. Europe is so expensive normally in vegetables, you would think, but compared to the Philippines, they're actually cheaper. So it really baffles you what was wrong with the produce here in the Philippines, other than all wrapped in plastic, right? And then I dug into it, and the Philippines has like a unique struggle because we have inconsistent supply. We're now touching upon a rainy season is coming up, and typhoon season, which means that the archipelago here will be battered by storms and typhoons here that will be devastating for the region. And you'll have typhoons coming in as well from through Kuala Lumpur and all throughout the region, right? And on top of that, in summer, it gets scorching hot and it's very dry. So we constantly bounce between really hot and dry to over flooding and to devastating monsoons and typhoon seasons, right? And here in the Philippines, we're very outdated when it comes to farming technology. We haven't really invested much into modernizing our technology. So we still use water buffaloes as well to till our fields. It's very low mechanized. We don't have as many greenhouses either. So we're very outdated when it comes to farm tech, which means that actually the Philippines imports quite a lot of food, not only from our neighboring countries and throughout the region. We import a lot from China, from Indonesia, Vietnam, Malaysia as well, but also throughout the world we get a lot from Europe and from the US and from Australia. So all of that has increases the price, but reduces the freshness, right? The unfortunate result is here that our produce is comparatively more expensive than in other regions, as I said before. And if it's cheaper, if you go to the local market, sometimes it's not of the freshest of best quality. It's actually of lesser quality. And we don't know how many of these are sprayed with pesticides, and they're imported from abroad, right? Now, the solution, and I'm going to say this is not a one size fits all silver bullet solution that can just solve everything. But for this small market and for a niche market, we introduce indoor urban farming. Now, how is that? Like if it's cold outside, if it's hot outside, if it's raining outside, if it's dark outside, where are you going to be most comfortable in? Indoors, right? At home, in your mall, in your office, in your car. You're protected, you're sheltered from the elements. You have aircon when it's too hot, right? Or you turn on the fan. When it's dark outside, you turn on the lights. We have created all of these environments so that we can live happily, that we are productive at the office, at our schools, at universities, and yet plants, we leave them outside. If it's hot outside, well, be it. If it's cold, if it's rainy, if it's storm, be it. Like plants are meant to be outside, right? And that's something that we're questioning at this point. And I'm sitting here in the Philippines. You guys are in Malaysia. People all around the world are tuning in. We're using 21st century technology here to communicate. And yet farming tech is relegated to 19th century technology or 20th century technology. So we're bringing stuff like IoT, automation, data monitoring, and all of that stuff into farming, right? So like the systems here that we have behind. And by bringing food right to the place of consumption. So most people live in the cities, right? And that's where we consume. That's where we have the restaurants. That's where we have the houses where we eat and cook and have our meals, right? So if we bring everything closer to the place of consumption, we reduce the farm to table distance, we reduce the food miles, and literally create food steps out of it, right? So it increases the freshness and we save on all of the logistical costs. So the solution is the one that we have behind you. So we can grow consistent and same quality all year round. We're unaffected by storms, typhoon, drought, and heat, and volcanic ash. I have to mention it because we've had a couple of volcano outbreaks here in the past. And we're not touched by bugs and pests. That means as well that we do not need to use pesticides. And if we're in the heart of the city where the consumers are, it keeps it fresh. So just to prove to you that we are not in that this is not a virtual background, as Colin mentioned, I'm going to give you a little bit of a farm tour here. So we're in our indoor warehouse, and it doubles as well as an office. And these are our indoor farm setups here. And I'm going to show you a little bit what we have. So we have rows and rows here. We have some basil here. We have some lettuce. Let me show you around. And we have, these are grown on 6 levels. And the warehouse that I'm at, you can see here, a lot of it is still empty, and there's a lot of opportunity to grow. We have empty setups here, and we're in the process of setting those up. We can actually grow 2 metric tons, even more than 2 metric tons of food here on the monthly level on this very small footprint at very low cost comparatively. And I'm going to go into the cost a little bit later, but just to prove to you that this is not a virtual background. Now, going back to the presentation. Where was I? All right. Here we go. So when we sell to supermarkets, right, the normal farmer would grow food in his farm and then harvest it, transport it to the supermarket or to the market, and hope that people will buy it, right? So, and if people don't buy it, then it's basically lost, right? And it spoils, and then people have to, and then you throw it away, right? Or you have to take it back. So it's an additional cost of you to dispose it. What we do with our B2B partners is that we grow based on demand, and for the supermarkets, in order to avoid spoilage, what we do is we have an actual hydroponic setup on site, and we harvest our plants here with the roots, and then we bring them to the setups, to the hydroponic setups in the supermarkets, right? So we have this right here. So you, as a consumer, would harvest straight from the supermarket fresh plants that are still alive, right? That's as fresh as it gets. We let you harvest your own food. What we do is we really reduce the farm to table distance. So normally it's farmed all throughout the country here or a different region. It's brought in by consolidated, then transported, be that from a different island, be that from a different country altogether, and then processed, distributed to the supermarket, and then you. But what we do is we cut out a lot of the middlemen, and when you get something and you order something from us here, it's harvested in the morning and you get it just a few hours later. So it's as fresh as it gets. Now, here's some of the numbers, and you might say like, wow, being in the heart of the city is going to be very costly, right? And you are absolutely right. So rent is expensive. My electricity cost is throughout the roof. And you can hear maybe the ambulance here passing by. I'm really in the heart of the city. My labor cost is quite high, but all of this is a cost that is, in comparison to the yield and to the sales that we have, is actually acceptable, because we gain a lot more. Our revenue is quite significant. So even on a monthly basis, we still walk away with a minimum of let's say $20K US dollars on a monthly basis, and that's quite good for a farm. And our costs are quite stable. Those costs do not increase, but the opportunity is that we increase the number of plants that we grow, we get more efficient, and we increase our sales ratio. B2C, your normal consumer will pay more on a per kilo basis per plant than your B2B customer. So it's about finding the right ratio there in order to maximize your return. So just remember, if someone asks me or tells me like, your farm has so much electricity costs, it's not viable, then I say like, well, it is a cost. Even think of it that way. If you were to invest, if your cost of running something is $10 million a month, that sounds enormous, right? But if your profit or if your revenue is 50 million out of that, hey, then it's a cost that is acceptable, right? As long as you break even or are profitable, then it's fine. The ROI on a farm like this is 2 years. An indoor farm has an ROI of 2 years. Imagine that, like no farm out there has an ROI of 2 years. An outdoor farm has an ROI of 20 years, if anything, right? The key requirements for us is, we need access to water just to tap. Electricity must take a pretty high electricity load. We need a lot of open space, no metal roof. And also one thing is, we do not use air conditioning here. It's a bit toasty in here, but we manage otherwise. And you can see here, the plants are doing really fine. As long as we have good airflow and heat extraction, good ventilation, and we have our own tricks how we can keep the plants happy here. And yeah, that's basically it. So imagine if I had to pay aircon for a place like this, for 700 square meter warehouse, which is open like that, which has a roof like this, right? Oh my God, that would really be a lot of cost. And we pledge ourselves to hire a lot of farmers as well. It's either young farmers straight out of university, or what we do as well is we work with NGOs and institutions that work with street kids and people who live on the streets here. We have a big homeless issue here, of course, in the Philippines and probably in other countries in the region. And what we did is we actually managed to train these guys and these kids and into becoming indoor urban farmers. So we train them how to plant, how to seed, how to do maintenance on our systems, provide them with key learnings, a living wage, so they get quite a good salary, and with food. We always have our dinners and lunches here together at the farm, and it's food that we prepare with the produce that we grow on site. And again, this is our grand plan here for our farm. We're going to set up all of these units here in the back, and I'm sitting at the conference table right in the back. And we have space here that we will be turning into co-working space, just to be a little bit, just to show other people how it's done, right? And of course, we're keeping everything clean. We're gonna put in glass walls here so that it stays clear from contaminants. The opportunity that we have here, and this is our second project that we have, is to really combine a restaurant and food experience with indoor urban farming. So we have farm site on one space, and then a restaurant space on the other, where you can get your, do you want a kale smoothie? Hey, let me grab some kale right from the back and make a kale smoothie right in front of you with freshly harvested green. You want your mixed salad, you want your burrito. We have vegan burritos even as well. You want your pesto made. We can do everything on site with the fresh produce that we have here, which is fantastic, right? So our opportunity, what we are trying to focus on here as well, is bringing indoor farming closer to the masses by integrating it with a food experience altogether. Are you excited yet? I am. So this is what it looks like. On one side, you have farm, and on the other side, you have like sort of a restaurant, takeaway, and your fresh produce that you can get. It's a big opportunity. Everyone all around the world talks about it. I think the Philippines lags a little bit behind in all of this, but Europe has, it's so big in Europe, it's so big in the US already, that the region here has still yet to pick it up. I think Singapore is doing a very good job. Japan obviously has quite a lot of farms, and I'm aware of some of the key players in Malaysia as well, who are doing a fantastic job. But there's a lot of opportunity here. We certainly don't have a market that is saturated yet with too many key players. There's a lot of growth, and people ask me as well, like, hey, what if another key player comes in? Is he gonna take a piece of your slice, of your pie? And I say the pie is so big. There's so much opportunity to promote farming here, indoor urban farming, and this has even grown tremendously over the last couple of months, particularly when Corona picked up, because that had an impact on all of our supply chains. And I don't know how it was in Malaysia, but certainly here in the Philippines, we had a moment where the borders were shut and where people were figuring out where like all of the food comes from and how the virus reacts and how it travels, where we shut off all of the borders, and it was hard for fresh produce to travel. So at some point it was really, really hard to get fresh produce. And us being a local supplier here, we were just sold out altogether. In fact, we're really 100% sold out each and every day, because everything that we grow here is already sold out. So it's probably the best problem to have, and that's why we need to set up more of these units here. ADB is talking about it, and everyone is talking about it. It's such a growing market. So this is it for my presentation, and I hope you took some key takeaways from this. Follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, and on LinkedIn. Hit me up, drop me a line if you want to know more about what it is that we do. I thank you so much for your time and for your attention here. And we're open. Colin, are we open for questions? If anyone has questions.
We're definitely open for questions, Ralph. I have to say that is amazing. Thank you so much for the virtual tour. I am personally inspired. I'm personally also interested to head over to urban farming, and I'm sure the rest of everybody else. Yeah. Where are you situated, by the way?
I'm in the middle of Makati, and I'll give you another tour here. Okay. I'll show you how in the middle we are, and I'm walking past here.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
All right. I hope my Wi-Fi is not going to drop.
Okay, that's outside right there, right in the city. Wow.
Call it urban farming. It's not called urban farming for no reason, right? We're urban. We're not in the suburbs. We are right here in the heart of the city.
Amazing. And we got some questions, Ralph, from some of our participants. You ready?
Sure.
Okay.
Shoot.
Peter Sprang is asking, is it possible to install solar panels on top of your farm building?
It definitely is. You know, we are just renting. We're just tenants in this building. In fact, like we're on the third floor of a building, and the bottom floors are all offices.
Wow.
So we're just renting the space, and we have a lease here for 5 years. And solar panels. So we calculated. We have a 700 square meter roof, and with the electricity capacity that we could get from the solar panels, we could offset about 30%, right, of our electricity bill. So it's not, well, it's not neglectable, but it's not like the 100%, right? Simply because it's a lot of electricity that we use. Now, then we have to look at the ROI and how long it would take for, you know, the investment cost that you put into solar panels to get back on this. Plus, I think we're not entirely sure whether we're allowed to put it on our roof. So it's more like, if you have your own building, fine. I would have gone with solar altogether.
Yeah.
We just got this building. You know, during COVID, what happened? Like a lot of companies unfortunately went bust, went bankrupt, right? So rent prices went down as well. So this would have been quite crazy to get like this space in the heart of the city at this price. So and as it stands, like prices of larger spaces have gone down significantly, right? Malls are empty. Not many people are going to malls, or I don't know how it is in KL, right? But some of the bigger or older malls, particularly, right? Who goes there anymore? People buy online. So there's definitely a lot of opportunity in converting larger spaces into spaces like this.
Wonderful, wonderful. How did the marketing work out for you when you first started, Raf?
It's hard, right? Like, because this is so new, and then people are like, oh, we don't understand, or what is it, right? And of course, some people get it, and you show them the produce, but it's not an easy process. Particularly, we started 5 years ago, and there are not that many players in the market, but more and more people buy into it. The Philippines is also a more meat-centric culture than, for instance, other countries in the region. You know, KL, Indonesia, or Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia have more vegetarians or vegans, right? And that might be a cultural thing, a religious thing as well, right? People eat a lot of meat, and particularly pork and beef, obviously here, but it changes. You know, everyone does CrossFit and yoga and Spartan races and obstacle courses and all of that, right? And with that comes a more like knowledge about what it is that we need to eat and consume. So all of that has like an increasing factor into like the willingness to consume more fresh and healthy food.
Wow, thank you. Definitely. We got another question over here, Ralph. The question is, would you consider indoor crop farming? It's a question from William Chen.
Right. So like rice or so, I mean, there is a reason why, if you check out every indoor urban farm or vertical farm, that they will grow the same usual suspects like kale, basil, arugula, and those guys, right? Or lettuces, etc. Because they grow pretty fast, right? Like it takes about a 6-week cycle to grow them or less, and then you can sell it, and then you move on, right? And it's high margin, it's high yield, and you can sell it for quite a substantial, like it's called a high value crop. Now, one of the things that makes it worthwhile is because we have high electricity costs with these LED lights, for instance, right? So you have to create a produce that can where you can get enough revenue from it. I think it's more complicated if you use crops like rice or grain, because it's now grown in large farms where it's so cheap, and the price per pail or per kilo is very so low that revenue would not make up for the electricity cost or for the rent or for the labor, right? Indoor. However, I don't want to paint that picture, but maybe in future, if we become either more, if climate change is going to be of more prominent,
Yeah.
factor, and the price for rice increases, or for grain, or for what, I don't know what, like hops or anything increases, then maybe at some point it might make sense, right?
Yeah.
It's a financial calculation, basically. At
Most
this
definitely.
point, it doesn't make sense, but I know also that a lot of people are researching about it,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Risk calculations, of course,
yes.
into risk calculations.
That's a very good question. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. I think we're gonna go for another question. William Chen, again, he's gonna ask you. Oh, it's the next one. Let me check. Okay. What's the difference harvesting period compared to conventional? Oh, wait, I'm gonna ask another one first. Questions are coming in, Ralph. Just bear with me for a bit.
All
Okay.
right.
Okay, I'm gonna start from Dr. One. Do you do fish indoor farming?
We don't. So we don't do aquaponics.
Okay.
The simple reason is there's a couple of reasons, practical reasons. We're on the third floor here of a building, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you were to put in a fish tank, let's say 1 cubic meter fish tank weighs 1 metric ton, right?
Yeah.
So, and you would have to have a couple of this. So the load bearing on the per square meter here would
Yeah.
just increase dramatically. And this was built as an office space. So maybe not as safe to put in like 10 indoor fish tanks in here. That would increase the load to 10 metric tons, right? And for that,
Yeah.
the second thing is like fish, it's not, people always say like, oh, if you have fish, it's like a closed loop cycle. You still need to feed the fish. Fish feed has to come from somewhere. So there's definitely an external input there still. But I love fish. I have my own big fish tanks, but tilapia and so forth, a lot can go wrong. There's many more uncertainties and many more components that can go wrong. Fish and aquaponics is great if you have an outdoor space and you have a huge pond and a huge facility that you can tap into, and where the fish is stable. For smaller systems, I think it's too critical because the nitrate level can drop, or you can and then suddenly you have like 100 kilos of fish that you need to dispose of, and that suddenly that doesn't really work. So it's a little bit more cumbersome as such and less precise. And what we do is quite precise. It's precision farming. We manage the pH, the EC, the temperature, and all of that. So with fish becomes very stable if you have a large system. But indoor, the 1 cubic or 10 cubic tanks, that's still quite small in comparison.
Definitely. There is also, here's another question that's coming up. Is your company providing consultancy for the project? Are there any possibilities to collaborate if someone's interested?
Absolutely. So that's what we do as well. I've consulted different projects all around the world, from Kazakhstan to Mongolia to Micronesia to anywhere, like Sudan. Wow. Yeah. So yes, hit us up.
Yep. You guys know what to do. You want to contact Ralph. Are we going to go for another question? Of course. We're going to carry on with the question.
Find me on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. You heard that, guys. Finding on LinkedIn. But I'm going to ask the next question here. I think it's about logistics. Do you use food pickup trucks to redistribute your vegetables for wider coverage aside hydroponics in malls alone for just in time vegetables? You use
we don't.
Okay.
We don't, because the volume is still quite small, and the premise is we want to supply a 5 kilometer radius, right? And frankly, there's enough. So if this whole setup is fully operational, the volume is we can supply about 30 different restaurants. Because imagine a restaurant will have like 10, 12 kilos of lettuce, 8 kilos of arugula, blah, blah, blah. And that combined number, you know, in total, including B2C, we can probably supply like 30 restaurants. And 30 restaurants you can find within a 5 square kilometer radius, particularly if you're in the heart of the city.
Definitely. Yeah. Easy access. There we go.
Correct.
Easy access. William Chen has a comment on regards of climate change may change the traditional farming landscape though. What's your take on that? Climate change may change the traditional farming landscapes.
Yeah, I mean, climate change is one of the things that's leading us to do this, right? Because of the storms and the typhoons. I don't think there's going to be a scenario in the world where indoor urban farming will become of less importance, right? Now, how this will look like, and the question before whether we will eventually move rice and grain production or other crops into indoors, I see that as a future, but maybe it will shift towards, we'll produce algae, we'll maybe grow crickets as a food source for protein, right? And I think there's going to be a lot of change. So for sure, climate change is real, it's here to stay. The amount of storms and typhoons is going to intensify, right? Drought is here, and we just have to find ways and how to stop and to reduce it, and meanwhile come up with solutions that secure our food supply.
Definitely. Well, I think that's it for Q&A for now. We're running out of time. We're going to head over to our next program. Ralph, you have been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing and giving us a virtual tour. I really like what you're doing with the place. And we wish you all the best. Ladies and gentlemen, if you guys want to ask Ralph some more questions, head over to lounge, schedule a meeting with him, have a one-on-one in our virtual rooms. And once again, Ralph, we like on behalf of the team over here, we'd like to wish you all the best. And thank you once again for joining us over here. All right.
Thanks a lot. Thanks everyone. And just hit me up on LinkedIn if you have any questions. And I hope to have inspired some of you guys.
Most definitely. Thank you. Thank you, Ralph.
All right.
Take care. Be safe.
Thanks. You guys. You too. Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Ralph. Once again, Ralph Becker, CEO and founder of Urban Greens. Okay, look up in social media or on the internet if you want to get in touch with Ralph Becker. Next up, I'm going to introduce right here. We're going to introduce now, and then you're going to jump into the virtual room and for the next program, digital transformation of high value crops, discovering methods, innovations, and demand. Mohammad Atish is a systems thinker, bringing over 10 years of cross-sectorial experience and delivered 50 plus projects in natural resources, program management, monitoring, and evaluation. Developing business models, building private sector partnerships, strategic consulting, and innovation spread across 20 countries. Ladies and gentlemen, he'll be co-founder of Nature Dots, and that will be Atish Khan. After that, we're going to head over for our lunch, and we're going to see you back at after lunch at 2:05. So enjoy the video, enjoy the session right here, right now.